So who here has ever used function calling? All right, who's done that with open source models? Small models? Yeah, a couple. So you'll understand. I think you'll understand the pain in what I'm talking about, at least at the beginning of this talk. So we're going to talk about a real problem that people feel for real in production systems when they're using open source, or when they're not using this massive frontier model that work almost all the time. And that costs people actually a lot of time and money. And the title, I'm not going to say it because they might not publish the video if I say exactly what it means. But yeah, thank you. All right, let's go. First, as a warning, it's still time to leave, but there's going to be a lot of JSON schema in this presentation, but I can assure you that it's actually worth it. So please stay. There's going to be a lot of this. So the big number, and that comes from, I would say hundreds now of conversations with developers, mostly in enterprise, is that 50% roughly of the integration time of large language models in production systems is not spent prompting, it's not spent on infrastructure, it's actually spent wrangling in different ways with the outputs of the models. It's like trying to make them fit in whatever format that you have, that your legacy systems basically need. And that's not an exception with, and actually not an exception with function calling. You want to do function calling with small open source models, or even open source models in general, well, you'll get a few things. You'll get outputs that violate the schemas. So that can be, you have a complex nested functions. It will completely mess the end. The parameter names are not going to be correct. It will mix optional and required arguments when you can specify optional arguments. It will hallucinate. So that's when you have really many functions, non-existent functions in the arguments, and parameter types are not always followed. So that's the first difficulty. And there's another difficulty with function calling with open source model, is that level of insanity where somehow every model provider has decided that they needed to have their own function calling template. Don't ask me why, but these are like actually real templates, like real LLMs. Like I think this is, and Rick can correct me, this is Llama, this is Hermes, this is DeepSeek. Like we're getting into really weird territory here. And then you have Qwen, which is kind of like, what the hell is going on there? Like, and the problem with this is that you actually have to do extra parsing at the end of the function calling, and it's the same thing for every model. And it's quite complicated. But there's another way. You don't need to suffer. You don't need to live like this. There's actually better ways to deal with these things. And, well, kind of a plug, the way you do this is actually the way we do this at .text is that we have a product that's specific. So we have a product that's specific to generate valid JSON. Maybe everyone here knows that. But we have one that is specific for function calling, and I'll explain what it consists in, what it looks like. And the way it works, it guarantees 100% compliance, not with retries or like better prompting. It actually uses, enforces constraints at the token level. We have a bunch of articles on our blog that explain how we do it. And we have an open source library that does that as well. We're using templates that understand model-specific formats, so you can specify any format that you want without having to, to write the parsing code, et cetera, and all that nonsense. We support, so unlike, we support parallel function calling, obviously, but we support other things that models don't necessarily support natively, which is for sequential function calling. We'll see an example of this. We support nested function calls, which models are typically really bad at. And other formats of function call. We also have graph-based function call when you have a predefined, graph that the model can basically walk on to generate several function calls. And we support JSON, XML, Python, etc., different function formats. Because what I didn't say at the insanity level here is that some of them will take JSON, some of them will take XML, and some of them will take Python, will generate Python. So we can support all of those. Why should you listen to me? Well, that's a good question. At .x, we do structured outputs. We started 2 years ago with the open source library outline, so that was way before it was cool. Everyone thought we were crazy at the time. It's like, oh, GPT-5 is going to solve all the problems, including cancer, but hasn't solved itself without structured outputs the problem with the JSON outputs, and hasn't solved cancer either. So we worked on this. We've been working on this for 2 years. Has more than 2 million downloads a month. And the core library that implements the actual structured output like logic was included in VLLM, TGI, SGLang. I didn't put the logo, and it's downloaded 2.5 million times a month, and you can use it. I mean, I actually highly encourage, if you're curious about structured outputs, to go and use it. We also are, I mean, I would say in all, just very humble, but I could say that we are the industry standard when it comes to structured outputs. We have this course that I recommend if you want to learn. It goes through the basics of structured outputs and how different open source libraries work, etc. We were acknowledged, like OpenAI released structured outputs in 2024. It was in August. We're acknowledged in the blog post. We have very good reasons to think that we're using our open source library in the backend. Cohere uses our open source library in the backend. And apparently we have Carpathy is a fan of our engineering blog. So yeah, so please listen to me. And so why would the structured people who do structured outputs actually care about tool calling? Well, that's because it's very closely related. Like, let's take an example. Let's take the insane DeepSeek format. And so the model, so you're structuring the output, and the model decides that it's going to return a tool call. Well, before that, we don't structure the output. We just let the model output whatever it wants. Then we detect that there was, this token was generated. Then we choose between the different function names that the user specified. And once we've done this, we happen this little, this little thing here. That's just like a beginning of a markdown thing. And here is like where structured outputs happen. So that's where we intervene. And then we reappend the backticks and the tool call, the end of tool call token. So they're very closely related, but it's slightly more complicated than just generating JSON. There's a lot of processing that needs to happen. And yeah, let's go. Yeah, this one works. Let's just go through a simple example. And at the beginning, I'll just go through a synthetic example, and hopefully I'll have time for a short demo. So here's the thing. So you have our assistant, Bunny B1, resemble us with an existing product is purely a coincidence. And you want, Bunny is an assistant, and it can do many things. I mean, not that many things. It can search for flights, booking hotels, reserve tables, and get the address of an airport. And so the first thing in the conversation, then you ask like, hey, find me a flight to Paris tomorrow. So instead of looking in its like quote unquote memory, it will return a tool call. And then you'll get the answer of this, and you'll be like, okay, find me a hotel close to the airport and a good table for two. If you're nice, you actually add the flight number as well, but I forgot here. And it will return like two functions, like if you're lucky, book hotel, where location is a function is getting the airport address, so it's like a nested function call. And then you just get reserve a table, and normally you should be happy and say, good boy, Bunny. How does it work? Well, first, when you do tool calling, you do need to tell the model which tools are available. And that is the easy part, because that is basically when you use OpenAI, that's what you do. You just send beautiful JSON schemas, such as this one, that define the tools. Here it's fairly simple. It's the one for search flights. So I added it as a Python function so you can understand what's going on here. You have two arguments: destination, departure, date, and that's a very simple. I mean, you can see that's very simple. Both are required, so this is very simple. But you can do slightly more complicated. Is that you can define nested functions. You can define nested functions. So here, for instance, as you saw with the book hotel, location was given by a function call, another function call. And you can specify it in the JSON schema that you pass by referring actually to a tool for the location argument. I could also have said this is a tool or a string so that I can choose between the two. But here, we refer to a tool. And this is code that actually works. We can do this. So it's just slightly more complex than what OpenAI does. And then the second part, which is the response format. So that's something that is not in OpenAI because OpenAI has one format, so they don't need you to specify the response format, but with open source models, you actually need to. And that's where you start having fun. Because you have a first, that's another JSON schema, you were warned, I told you, like you tell me you didn't know. This is basically an extension of JSON schema. So you have a type sequence. So the sequence say basically just return, everything, all the items one after the other. The first item is a string, so we'll just generate any text. And then when it finds, so that's the Hermes format, when it finds a tool call token, then it goes through all of this. And what this means is generate any of search, flight, book, hotel, reserve table, and then the end of tool call token. The problem with this is that it might not call anything. So you kind of want to force Bunny to actually output, return a function called do something. Well, it's very simple. You can actually specify and say, well, there needs to be at least one. But there's another problem, is that it might book a hotel without searching for a flight, which is kind of problematic. And that's called force. You want to force the sequence. You want to tell Bunny basically, you can search for a flight, book a hotel, reserve a table, but you cannot reserve a table because before you search for a flight. And so you can actually impose the sequence very easily. With this thing, it seems very complicated, but it's actually just saying that it needs to output. So this is one tool call, basically. And then you have these 3 tool calls, and the sequence is saying, basically, just generate all of these. And so there you can, you see that you can have fun because you can combine all of these. The old JSON schema spec is supported, so you can really have fun. You can really go to town with this and completely control the output of the output of the LLM. And you might have another problem, which is, well, my model naturally returns Python. It doesn't want JSON. Well, that's not a problem because when you specify the reference to the tool here, you can actually say, I want you to format it in Python. And so you end up with this. And now is the time where I show you a demo that might not work. So let's see. I'm going to use, just to, I'm not going to cheat and use like a 70B model. I'm going to use a small LM2 1.7B and build an assistant with it and show that we always get valid function calls. Just so you know, so the fun thing is that it works with the 350 million parameter model. But the problem is that the 350 million parameter model will order pizza for anything. If you ask for what the weather is, it will order a pizza, and always does this. And always at Pizza Hut for some reason. I don't know why. Even if you ask, they're like, okay, I'd like a pizza, but from somewhere else. It's like Pizza Hut, 2 pizzas. So okay. That's the future. It's like advertisement and models, right? I don't know what Hugging Face cooked there, but maybe they got sponsored. So here's what we do. We define our functions. So Bunny has different functions here because it was simpler. It can. I can't do that, man. I'm sorry. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. I can try, but then we might spend 10 minutes actually figuring it out. So yeah. And so you define several functions, so get weather, order food, order rights, and text. And here the output format can be, it can be any tool. So it can be a sequence. Then it needs to be a list, and then it will be different tools. And you'll see that the output, you'll see Python as a result in the command line, but that's not because it generates Python, because small LM is actually a JSON, is like a JSON format for function calls, but we pass it and return it as a Python function. So that's why you might see Python. And so let's call Bunny. Hello. All right. What do we need? I mean, we can always ask the same question that everyone asks to these poor assistants: is what's the weather like in Paris? Sorry?
How we can order pizza in Paris.
Okay. Let's order how many pizzas? 100 pizzas. From Pizza Hut? This talk was sponsored by... Okay, let's see. Are we gonna get hungry? No, it worked. It's a 1.7b parameter model, by the way. Well, all right. Let's order... Yeah, you're right, because let's order, I don't know, like 3 hot dogs. Hey, that works. Yeah. What else? Oh, I have one. The nesting one? I don't have the nesting one in the. Let's order Thai food. No, I can't order from different restaurants. We probably could if we updated the thing. Let's update Thai food for 3 from Thailand. Yum. Yeah, works pretty well. Now let's text Rémi to say the food is ready. Pretty good. What else should we text Rémi?
Can you make the sequencing? Like, book me a flight and order the pizza?
Well, I didn't implement in this demo because I had 2 days to prepare this talk.
But theoretically, you are able to chain the...
We're able to chain, do parallel function calling, basically, which models can do naturally. Some models can do naturally, but here we can force it as well. Yeah. And so...
And sometimes you have business cases where you, like, before execute one backend call, you can also aggregate the data and return it for the next or the following business call.
Okay, and so you want to do them at the same time, right?
Okay, you have this sequence logic you have. Huh?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, and I'm actually going to stop here. So just leave plenty of time for questions.
Thank you very much, Rémi.